Tonight is December the 31st, 2021. Almost the end of it. And I hope the end of the pandemic and all this craziness. But anyway, let's talk about something that makes sense tonight. Let's talk about microphones. You might think I like to play with microphones. Well, you know, microphones are something that we can play with and experiment with. And it makes a lot of difference in what your voice sounds like. And this, while mostly aimed at amateur radio, can apply to any audio system that transmits your voice either over radio or out to speakers. It's how you sound. And you don't usually want to sound like the space shuttle communicating with Earth, you know, where you just got that very tailored high frequency voice, which I'm sure they know what they're doing, and that's the best way that they can communicate voice signals, voice audio between Earth and the ISS. At the same time, we all have this idea, I think, that we want to sound like a high quality stereo FM station. Well, maybe we do sometimes, but I think there's a middle ground, and the middle ground is basically where I think I've tried to go. Well, I've tried to go to the hi-fi stereo version of quality sound, like an FM station, and that's all good if you're an amateur radio operator and the signals are very clear. You don't have any background noise, like I'm talking to you right now. Ultra quiet when I stop talking. But if you've got a lot of noise, a lot of QRM, QRN, man-made or natural made noise on the band, static, fading in and out, etc. I won't go into all of the amateur radio terminology here. But then you need something probably that accentuates the highs a little bit more, not the ultra highs, but you usually are harder to understand if your audio is kind of bassy. And that may be true for most things. That even may be true in a PA system. A PA system doesn't do low frequencies very well. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get to the point. There are numerous videos on how to save these beautiful D104 microphones. You can see 3 of them there. Obviously, I like them. But this does not apply in any way just to the D104. The D104 in the beginning was a crystal mic, and then it went into a ceramic mic element. But the physical structure and the quality of construction of these microphones is just so superb. I think these things are going to last 1,000 years. I think after we're gone and, a million years later when we dig ourselves up again, I think we're going to go, wow, what is this thing? Anyway, enough of that. You can buy these, they're called condenser microphone upgrades, and they're range somewhere around $20, $25 plus shipping. So you're going to pay $30, $35 by the time you get it to you, plus tax and all that stuff. But I want to show you something. Okay, see these little guys right here? I just got these off of Amazon. There's 10 of them. And 10 of them is the minimum order for $6.90. These things are 69 cents a piece. It's true. Plus tax. Okay. And these happen to have 2 wires on them. Some of them have 3, but if they have 3 connections, 2 of them are soldered together because they're the ground. They're the negative side. I don't think I can show you here on the video, but you can actually see which side is grounded, and it's this side right here. It's the one on the left, because there's some little runs. There's like 3 little runs coming out of there. They're very small, Sometimes things show up in the video much better than I can see here on the view on the viewer. And that's the negative side. And the one that floats all by itself on here is the positive side. That's important to know because they are polarized. Let me show you what one of these things actually looks like inside. I'm going to move the camera over here. And where is that little devil? Right here. Okay, let's get the camera down on it really good as best I possibly can. I know I can't zoom in too much or this go out of focus. But just when I broke the wire off of it, since I had 10, I said, well, I'll just sacrifice it. Okay, to start out with, it has a piece of like black felt over it. Black felt. Here's one that's has not been damaged in any way. Let me show you that. Here's a new one. See how it's got that black felt over it? It just covers up a hole. Okay? But I peeled it off, and there's a little hole right there. Okay, and then I pulled it apart, and what's inside, to start with, are these three pieces. Okay, there's the hole from the other side. It's got, looks like a little piece of mica. The first thing, besides the static, because these parts are so small, is this. This is the first piece that's in there. I think it's like a piece of mica. That's probably the dielectric. And then it's got like a little spacer, this little white thing right here. Then it's got this piece right here. And this piece right here is actually soldered to this tiny little tab right there. And see, I pulled it back. I hope the camera's doing a good job being in focus. And if you look at that closely, you can see that that's a three-legged device. That's the FET that's inside there. So it literally is the microphone itself with the output attached right here to the gate of this FET. Just like they show you in the pictures. And this is reality. This is the real deal right there. That's all there is to it. The only piece that's missing is that little piece of felt over the top of it. Okay, so you see all this kind of stuff in pictures. This is old photographic paper that I'm just using to scratch on just because it's paper. Keep throwing it away and doing nothing with it. Okay, so that's what a condenser mic looks like. And like I say, I'm getting them for 69 cents. Now, the thing about it is the output of that little microphone itself is very tiny. I don't know what it is. It's probably the microvolts. So it won't drive anything directly. That's why you run it into that FET. And when you're running that FET, you've got to supply a little bit of voltage to it. But there's about a zillion ways you can do this. You don't have to do it anybody's prescribed way. You can do it your own way. And what I mean by that is like these heads right here. These heads only contain the microphone. They don't contain any resistors or capacitors or anything else. Okay? All the resistors and capacitors are down here in the bottom. See how this one's got a potentiometer on it. This one used to have an amplifier in it, but I don't use the amplifier, but I still use the potentiometer. And I put it in series with a load resistor. I made another video about this, and I talked about this, but this is actually quite important. That load resistor is important, and you can vary it somewhat. And if you make it a little bit higher than what they suggest, some of them suggest a 1K ohm, some suggest a 2.2K. But in either case, you can raise the series resistance, that load resistor, to, at least 7 or 8K. These are not exact numbers. Say 10K or less. As much as 10K. If you raise it more than that, it doesn't make any difference because I made these measurements. Okay. Now, In the case of this, there is a 9-volt battery located underneath this cover right here with the resistor and the capacitor in it. It's a very simple circuit. I guess I'll draw it again, but it's been drawn many, many times out on the internet. But what I did to solve the problem so I can use any of my microphones, so I can put these condenser type microphone elements in just about anything, is I built a standalone voltage source for it. That's literally what this is. See, I say microphone input, and then the microphone input goes straight in, and it uses the resistor. There's the blocking capacitor. There's the load resistor in series with the potentiometer, and there's the battery. So with this built, what I can do is I can modify literally any microphone, so simple, by just replacing the element in the head. And I don't have to do anything else to the rest of it. But I do have to plug it in to this little box right here so that I can get the voltage to drive that little FET. Okay? Now, if you do it professionally, so to speak, you use one of these. This thing is called phantom power. I've got it all wrapped up here. There's nothing fancy about it. All this is a power supply. It does exactly the same thing with a whole lot more fanfare and XLR connectors and an outboard power supply, and costs 20 to 40 bucks depending on where you buy it. But that's all this is. All this is a battery, the equivalent of power supply, a battery, a resistor, and a capacitor. That's all literally that's inside this thing that makes it work. So you could buy one of these for convenience, and convenience is good. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not saying build everything that you use, but this little thing right here that I built, I'm going to show you one more time here. With this 9-volt battery, I got to secure that a little bit better. I need a clip for it. A potentiometer, you don't need a potentiometer. You can use the recommended values. That's a 2.2K if you can read the colors on it. That's what they recommend for it. This is a 20K pot. And I see that it's a linear pot too. And I see when I've got it about a fourth of the way up, which would be like 5K, in series with a 2.2, that's 7.2K. So 7 or 8K actually gives it the maximum output. Raising it any higher than that doesn't make any difference. Okay? And what really got me started on that was this little Heil microphone. I like it. I like it because it's a nice piece of equipment. Let me get some of this stuff out of the way. It's got the push to talk here, so I can use it with my base station, as we call it, or my mobile rig or whatever. I've got this tip wired up for the Collins S-line stuff. Of course, this is ground. The tip is a PTT, and the ring is audio. That's the way the S-line stuff is hooked up. But you can't plug this in directly because it needs a power supply. So I plug it first into whatever I did with it. This thing right here, which is portable, battery operated. I plug this in here. And then I use another 1/4 inch to 1/4 inch, the stereo style plug. You know the difference between these. These are, there's a special name for these. I can't remember those three letters that they use with the tip, ring, and ground. And the mono type has just got a tip and a ground. But anyway, you got to have this if you want PTT, push to talk, and it turns on and it works. It works beautifully. So the point being is, just with some of the simplest of things, and for 69 cents a piece, you can buy these little guys right here. I think you can buy them off of eBay for like 77 cents a piece. Seriously. And the way that you can modify it is infinite. Okay, here's an old D104 original type element. So I drilled a 3/8 inch hole and mounted it in there with a little super glue. This is, I'm going to use this to upgrade something else. This face is forward, so if I put it in this microphone right here, I would put it inside, you know, like that, facing out. Here's another old style D104 microphone that went bad. So I did the same thing. Mounted in there this way. Okay, now here's something actually quite important. And I didn't realize this until I started doing so much experimenting with this. Depending on, for example, if you use, say, these little foam thingies here. Now, that little foam thingy is just really cool. And it just kind of draws itself to, you know, taking one of these microphones and mounting it up in there. You know, before you put it in whatever casing you're going to put it in. And that's fine. But when you add this and other pieces of foam and more foam and more cotton and more, well, look here at all the stuff you get sometimes. Now, these sellers that sell this stuff on eBay are very good. I've had very good results from them. But what I'm telling you is you can do it for 69 cents instead of $30. You know, you get all this kind of stuff. The more this, whatever it might be, down to cotton and everything else, that you add in front of the microphone, it does make a difference. Well, see, here's some more heads I haven't even modified yet. So I got work to do. What I have found out, let's see, here's some of the stuff from the old original D104s. This is actually very thin stuff, so I don't think this affects the sound very much. But the more of this stuff you put on the front of the microphone, the more it muffles it and it makes it sound kind of bassy. And you may like that. It may give it some fidelity. It may give it a sound that you like. It may give it a sound that your listeners like. But personally, I like a very crisp audio when I'm on the radio, because it gets through the QRM and QRN easier. QRN is naturally made sounds. That's the way that N, you can think about QRN, the N is natural made interference, and QRM you can think of as man-made, the M for man-made noise. So anyway, I promise not to get too much into that. So the point being is I have upgraded so many microphones, and they're just so successful. This one right here is a good one. It's got a very good element. You have to play with it a lot. You have to make sure that it's mounted properly. And again, take into consideration how much foam and cotton and sound absorbing material you put on the front of the microphone or around it, because it makes a difference. It will contour your sound. This is a genuine, never been modified little icon microphone that apparently has very good audio characteristics for transmitting the human voice. It is a condenser microphone. It gets its power from the radio through its connector. You can look all this stuff up. I'm not going to try to show you that. I'd be here for a week trying to show you all the connections for the ICOM and the Kenwoods and the Yaesus and everything else, and that's just not necessary at all. But this is a condenser mic. Just about everything is a condenser mic, and you kind of see why. If we could buy these things for 69 cents a piece, think about what the manufacturer could buy them for. They're basically free. They're pennies, and they sound very good. They do an excellent job. If you're an audio, if you're the audio tech for a band, whatever it takes, amateur radio, you can upgrade your microphones very easily. I did the same thing over here on these. I'm just showing you that You can do it on whatever. This little Turner Shure microphone over here, that's a very common one. I think in the beginning it's a dynamic, but it just did not work worth a hoot. So I changed it. Now, if the radio or the piece of equipment you're working into already has the power supply, or if you're using an external supply like this, they call this phantom power. You've got to supply it with power, either from the radio itself, built into it, or you got to have the phantom unit, or you got to build your own. Because you got to give it a little bit of voltage. Somewhere between, I don't know, 5 and 15 volts, something like that. 9-volt battery works great. See, like these little guys right here, these are condenser microphones. They have a 9-volt battery in them. I don't particularly like these because, well, I got to squeeze that thing really hard and it makes my finger get tired. It's a mobile mic. And they have just a little bit too high a pitch tone for them. See, I wired this thing for the same thing. Here's one for probably, let's see, here's another modern one for a Yazoo or whatever it came out of. I don't remember whether they used the RJ45 type connector. These are condenser mics. They're all condenser mics. That is where the world lives nowadays. See, this is one for my IC736. I don't like these microphones because, again, they've got that space shuttle sound, and they're just not very pleasing to carry on a productive conversation, of a productive QSO, if you know what I mean. Now, when it comes to these types of microphones, I completely shy away from dynamic. I've learned for a lot of years. I completely shy away from high quality. When I say high quality, I don't mean $1,000 ones. I'm talking about, this is the Audio Technica, however you say that. It's a dynamic mic. Dynamic mics to me don't sound, they just don't work very well on radio communications. I don't even know why I have so many of these darn things. But the condenser microphone is here to stay. It's not the microphone of the future, it's the microphone of now. And they work so very, very well. When it went to the dynamic microphones, I went through, I can't tell you how many of these things, high Z in, low Z out, because the dynamic microphones are a low impedance. So you plug your low impedance dynamic mic in here and you get the high impedance version of here. And this does help. Oh yeah, here I can show you. What's inside here, besides this was something that I built this back in 2013. This is something that I tried to contour and enhance the voice range of frequency. It didn't work very well, but these little microphone transformers right here are everywhere. And if you're trying to convert your low impedance mic to a high impedance input for the vintage equipment, well, it does what it's supposed to do, but I did not get the results. I did not get the quality that I was looking for. It'll do what it's supposed to do, but this is probably not going to satisfy you. This right here, what is this? Oh, 500 ohms and 4 ohms. Yeah, well, if you got a 500 ohm output like on some of the vintage Collins equipment and you want to run a 4 ohm speaker, or the other way around. The 500 ohm speakers actually sound quite good. I'm really amazed. I like that. But that's a completely different story. That's actually not part of this mix. But this little gizmo right here with a 9-volt battery, the capacitor, and the resistor, which is all there is to it besides the input and the output connectors. And I put this potentiometer in there. That's in series with the load resistor, just so I can vary a little bit. It makes a significant difference, by a factor of at least 10 dB. I didn't measure it. I have to admit I did not measure it, but it will at least double the volume. But then that's about all it'll do. But that's worth a lot. And then, again, You can build your microphone straight into this one. 2 connections. Yeah, actually, I guess I've got something in there. I can see that hole in the middle. Back to that stuff about putting all that foam on it. To me, it sounds the best. It has the clearest, cleanest communication level audio by not putting anything in front of the microphone element. So what you're doing basically is you're talking straight into that little black circle right there. Now, you probably want to put something over it just to cover it, just to make it look better, but put something very thin over it. I keep going over this. I apologize for being redundant, but it's the little, I mean, this right here, you can see that just simply can't alter your voice very much, and I don't think this can either. But these things do alter your voice, and what they end up doing is attenuating the highs. And you really want to be very careful how you attenuate the highs. You don't want to do that. And something like this, these windsocks and everything else. I mean, you know, when we watch this kind of stuff on the news and these guys are wearing windsocks, you know, these guys have multiple bajillion-dollar equipment. They can contour anything they want. They can make it sound any way they want. And you do not have to in any way build it into these old discarded microphone elements. It's just I've saved them because they fit in there with a little piece of foam here and here and here. It's just part of whatever. I think that's pretty well exhausted it. I save all this stuff because you never know when something cool is going to happen. Put all this back in there and put it away for the next exciting adventure of updating microphones. I hope this has helped. I hope you've all been safe and not experienced trauma and loss during this year of the pandemic. I got a thing today from ARRL about 1915, the very first issue of QST, and if you read it from 1915, what's that, 106 years ago? What you read there, because that was winding up to World War I, you read almost the same thing as you read today. Just not quite so much spin on it, I suppose. But you never know what's going to happen next, so stay safe, my friends. God bless you all, and thanks for watching. Okay, this is something I very reluctantly and lovingly do, and I do this with the hope that by some chance some of you might be able to help, offer something. As you can see, my Mr. Pinto cat. His name is Pinto, P-I-N-T-O. I call him Mr. P, Mr. Pinto cat. I've always had the way of referring to my loved ones in a manner like that. But anyway, this has developed into what has been diagnosed as a cancer, and it's not very pretty. But you can see he's doing quite well. He's been in terrible shape. I've taken him to the vet here in El Paso many times. 6 times at least recently, to 4 different vets, and they've done nothing for him. I finally started taking him over to Mexico, to Juarez, and the vets over there I found to be so much more compassionate. I don't want to get into a complaint session, but it seems like over here it was just all about money or litigation. I don't know what it was all about, but they weren't willing to do anything for him. I don't think we can cure this cancer. and that's what it's been diagnosed as. But the vet in Juarez has given me lots of antibiotics. I give him antibiotics every day, and prednisone for his pain and inflammation. When it first started, he smelled really bad, and it was very sad because I could hardly stand to be around him. But you can see how white and clear he is now, and he's a lazy old guy. I love him just the way he is. Well, I don't know. Where am I going with this? Got any ideas? What do you do? Have you ever had an experience like this with your cat? Like I say, he's going to be 13 years old, I think, in February. That's the best of my knowledge of his age. If you have any way of knowing how to deal with this in a loving way, he's not suffering. You can see that. He eats, he pees, and he poops. He stays to himself. He sleeps on a heated pad here. I know the world has gone through a lot of pain and trauma lately, and I know that some people would attack me because it's an animal or a cat and not a human, when there's been so much human suffering lately from so many people dying of can't breathe from COVID-19. My God, I don't know how to, I don't even know how to express that. But if you have any real ideas, thoughts, that not just crazy stuff, but if you have any experience of how to deal with an issue like this, please let me know. I would appreciate it. I know I'm going to have to let him go. And right now the prognosis is 3 to 6 months before the cancer does something terrible. But with the antibiotics and the prednisone, he's doing quite well.